Hi folks, Robert Lowell Goller here. Now there is a lot of inaccurate, false history about the Underground Railroad and the Abolitionist movement in our area out there, and some of it you'll hear about tunnels. We talked about a tunnel under Main Street at one point that was allegedly on the Underground Railroad, and there's no proof of it. Even some places that have historic signs out in front of them that claim to have been on the Underground Railroad, that more modern historians have brought up some questions about how accurate that history is. But one place where there's some really accurate documented abolition history, and by extension Underground Railroad history, is here in Griffins Mills. I'm here on their Heritage Day, probably a few weeks ago. If you are watching, this isn't live, and I have the privilege of being here today and talking about history. But the church behind me today is the Griffins Mills Presbyterian Church, but it was originally the West Aurora Congregational Church. And they have a great history that's documented. Now, a lot of communities will claim they were on the Underground Railroad. A lot of buildings will claim they're on the Underground Railroad. But here, one of the many great historic things about this building, built in the 1830s, is that there were anti-slavery meetings here. There were abolition meetings here. And the church itself actually approved resolutions against slavery in the 1840s. There were two sets of them, and came out against slavery. So by extension, some of the stories you hear about the Underground Railroad here, it gives some credibility to those stories that this community would have been part of the Underground Railroad. It's on the path toward Canada. So a lot of the stories you hear are not true, but this one, we have a lot of reason to believe that this community was certainly on the Underground Railroad. Of course, the Underground Railroad was not documented very well because it was a secret thing at the time, because you could be arrested for helping people get to Canada. But this church came out with a resolution against slavery, and then a few years later didn't think enough was being done by the parent church, the Presbytery, so they came out with another set of resolutions to say that they didn't think that their church was doing enough against slavery here in the 1840s. So that's documented. So a lot of things are not documented, and some of the stories are passed along over time, but this one is. So there's even stories here about we're along the creek, that the creek was used for the Underground Railroad, that people would be able to run along the creek and hide on their way to Canada. There's also stories even here of a tunnel, and I write about this a lot, but there's the tunnels were not part of the Underground Railroad. That's not how it worked, and the creek wouldn't have made sense. It would have been too risky. The Underground Railroad was actually a sophisticated system. People knew exactly where the next station was. And most of the time that you weren't just having folks run to safety. You actually had a very sophisticated system of one station to the next and conductors along the way. So this idea that there were tunnels and as part of the Underground Railroad, actually national experts on the Underground Railroad have debunked tunnels. The idea that certain patterns on quilts were part of the Underground Railroad, that's been debunked too. But here in Griffins Mills, you don't have to hang your hat on those stories of local lore. You actually have documented anti-slavery activity here. A political party had meetings here, anti-slavery. So you can see all of that right here in Griffins Mills. And this property, this church was part of it. They actually have a cool place to visit. This is a great, cool place to visit if you want to learn more about history. It's not a museum, but there's a lot to see. You could bring the family here and learn a lot. They actually had a schoolhouse behind this building, a school number 5 here in the town of Aurora, and the cupola from that schoolhouse is now displayed with the whole story about the schoolhouse. There actually was a road called Schoolhouse Road that went through here before they had Mill Road go straight through, so you can learn about that. You can learn all about the history of the church, one of the oldest churches in Western New York, still standing here. So it's a really cool place to come visit, and it's also one of the places where abolition anti-slavery movement is documented and not just a part of local lore, that we know it actually happened because it's in the minutes of the church, and they actually have it posted on the back wall of the church. And if you have a chance to come for a Sunday service, you can see that. So a lot of history in this building here in the town of Aurora. And again, one of the only very few places where anti-slavery, abolition, Underground Railroad activity is documented, not just part of the local lore. Again, I'm Robert Lowell Gowler. Thank you for joining me in Griffins Mills. I am the town and village historian, but these videos and a lot of my research are not connected officially with my duties as town and village historian. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for keeping history alive. And thanks for sending all the great ideas along. We'll see you next time.